You know that feeling when the conversation is already over. You're walking away, and nothing particularly dramatic happened? No big compliment. No obvious confession. No unmistakable move. And yet, something about the way she held eye contact for just a little longer, the way she laughed a little more than the moment seemed to deserve, or how she somehow found one last excuse to keep talking, keeps replaying in your mind. On the way home, you're asking yourself, wait, was she flirting? Or am I just imagining something that wasn't there? Why did that interaction feel different? Was she trying to tell me something? Or am I simply hoping she was? Here's what most people never realize. Women rarely flirt by making attraction impossible to miss. More often, they flirt by quietly creating space where attraction can naturally grow. Not because they're trying to be mysterious, not because they're playing games, and not because they enjoy keeping people confused. For many women, attraction follows a different sequence. Safety comes first. Expression comes second. That's why so many men completely miss the moment. If you've ever realized weeks later that she was probably interested, if you've replayed conversations wondering whether you missed something, or if you've spent years believing you're simply bad at reading women, you're probably not as clueless as you think. You've just been looking for fireworks, when genuine attraction usually arrives as something much quieter. By the end of this video, you'll understand the subtle ways women often flirt, what's actually happening beneath those behaviors, and how to tell the difference between everyday kindness and genuine romantic interest. Let's get into it. Most people imagine flirting as something bold, confident smiles, direct compliments, playful pickup lines, clear signals that leave almost no room for doubt. But real attraction usually starts much earlier than that. Long before words communicate interest, the nervous system already has. A woman's thoughts may still be figuring out what she feels, while her attention, her body language, and her energy have already started moving toward you. That's more important than most people realize, because your nervous system notices genuine interest long before your logical mind can explain why. Something feels different. Many men are taught to watch for pursuit, but a lot of women don't flirt by increasing pressure. They flirt by reducing distance. And that's the part almost nobody explains. When a woman feels curious about someone, when she feels emotionally comfortable, or when she simply enjoys being around him, she usually doesn't begin by making a huge move. She begins with invitations, small openings, tiny moments that quietly say, I'm comfortable staying here a little longer. If you don't recognize those moments, they disappear before you even realize they happened. So this video isn't really about memorizing 7 behaviors. It's about learning to recognize patterns. Because attraction rarely announces itself, it reveals itself in the extra moments she creates, the details she remembers, the attention she gives, the space she slowly makes for something more. Once you understand that, you stop overanalyzing every interaction, and you begin seeing what's actually there. Number 1. She finds little reasons not to end the conversation. This is one of the quietest signs you'll ever notice. And it's also one of the most meaningful. Many people assume attraction always looks like someone making an obvious move. But more often, women flirt by extending the interaction. One more question, one more comment, one more message, one more reason to keep the connection alive just a little longer. The deeper reason is surprisingly simple. When someone enjoys your presence, they naturally resist ending it. Not because they've planned some strategy, not because they're calculating every move, but because part of them isn't quite ready for the moment to be over. Especially early on, many women don't want to reveal too much interest too quickly. Instead of increasing the intensity, they increase the continuity. Their nervous system is quietly saying, I'm not ready to jump all the way in, but I'd really like a little more time with you. Here's the difference. Disconnecting version. All right, it was nice talking to you. And the conversation naturally ends. Connecting version. All right, before you go, what was the name of that restaurant you mentioned earlier? Or maybe hours later. I've been thinking about something you said. You seriously don't like olives? I still can't believe that. Those aren't random conversations. They're invitations. Tiny bridges leading back toward connection. Once you begin recognizing those moments, you stop waiting for attraction to arrive with dramatic gestures. Instead, you start noticing the quieter invitations that have been sitting right in front of you the whole time. Number 2, she remembers the little things most people forget. Here's something people rarely talk about. Attention is one of the clearest forms of attraction. Most people think chemistry only exists during the interaction itself, but genuine interest often becomes visible afterward, in what someone continues remembering once you've gone home. If she brings up something small you mentioned days ago, something that almost anyone else would have forgotten, that's usually not an accident, because our minds naturally organize information differently depending on how emotionally important someone feels. When a person begins mattering to us, their details become easier to remember, not because we're forcing ourselves to memorize them, because they simply become meaningful. A woman who's interested often starts collecting those little pieces of who you are, not to impress you, not because she's trying to score points, but because, without realizing it, she's beginning to build a more complete picture of you. Part of her inner world is quietly saying, "That mattered, because he matters." Here's what that looks like. Surface version. "So you drink coffee, right?" Perfectly normal. Flirtatious version. "You once said you only like coffee if it tastes more like dessert than actual coffee. I've honestly been laughing about that ever since." See the difference? One remembers information. The other remembers personality. One recalls a fact. The other remembers what makes you uniquely you. That's why moments like this feel so different. Because suddenly you realize, she didn't just hear your words. She carried them with her. And without either of you saying it directly, the distance between you becomes a little more personal, a little warmer, a little more real. That's how attraction often grows. Not through one unforgettable moment, but through dozens of small moments that quietly tell you, "I've been paying attention." Number 3, her body starts saying yes before her words do. This is where things become especially interesting. Because long before someone openly expresses attraction, their body often gives the first clue. Most people pay attention only to what someone says, but many women communicate interest through subtle physical cues before they ever put it into words. She turns her body toward you instead of away. She leans in without realizing it. She brushes her hair back the moment she notices you looking. Her voice becomes a little softer. Her smile lingers. Her eyes stay connected with yours just a heartbeat longer than necessary. Not every time. Not with every woman. And certainly not as some calculated strategy. These are often unconscious responses. When someone feels both comfortable and curious around another person, the body naturally begins moving toward connection. When that comfort isn't there, the opposite usually happens. People create distance. They angle themselves away. Their attention drifts elsewhere. That's why attraction can often be felt before it can be explained. Her thoughts may still be sorting through what she feels, but her body has already started leaning toward the answer. Here's the contrast. Disconnecting version. She answers your questions politely while continuing to scan the room. Her feet point toward the exit. Her responses are short. She's engaged enough to be courteous, but not enough to stay emotionally present. Connecting version. She gradually turns to face you completely. She maintains warm eye contact. She laughs naturally. Maybe her hand briefly touches your arm while she's smiling. Then, just as the conversation seems ready to end, she says, "Hold on, what happened after that?" That moment isn't proof she's fallen for you, but it is proof that her attention is choosing you. And that's an important difference. Once you begin noticing these quiet shifts, you stop relying only on words. You start recognizing the language that attraction often speaks first. Number 4, she playfully challenges you instead of simply agreeing. This sign gets misunderstood all the time. Many people assume that if a woman likes you, she'll always be agreeable, always kind, always careful, always trying to avoid saying anything that might create tension. But genuine flirting often looks surprisingly different. Instead of agreeing with everything you say, she teases you. She pokes fun at you. She playfully questions something you said. Not to embarrass you, not to compete with you, just enough to create a little spark between the two of you. Why? Because playful teasing is often less about humor and more about emotional safety. She's quietly asking herself, can he laugh with me? Can he stay confident without becoming defensive? Can he enjoy playful tension instead of taking everything personally? Those answers matter far more than most men realize. Because she's not simply evaluating attraction. She's evaluating comfort. Here's the difference. Flat version. You smile and say, "I'm never late." She shrugs. "Okay. Conversation over." Flirtatious version. You grin. "I'm never late." She raises an eyebrow. That's exactly what someone who's always late would say. Now she's smiling. Waiting. Not for the perfect comeback, but to see how you carry yourself. Somewhere inside, she may be thinking, can we play together? Will this stay fun? Can he keep the energy light? When you respond with warmth instead of insecurity, the interaction becomes something completely different. It stops feeling polite and starts feeling alive. Number 5. She lets you see small pieces of the real her. Here's where attraction becomes more emotional than playful. Many people believe flirting is about putting your best foot forward, looking impressive, sounding confident, keeping everything light and attractive. But often, real flirting begins when someone slowly stops performing. Instead of showing you the polished version of herself, she begins showing you the honest one, little by little, not through dramatic confessions, not by telling you every secret she's ever had, just through small moments of authenticity. Maybe she admits she's been anxious lately. Maybe she laughs about an insecurity. Maybe she tells you something she'd normally keep to herself. Those moments matter, because vulnerability is rarely random. When a woman begins sharing slightly more personal parts of herself, she's often watching one thing. How will he handle this? Will you judge her? Will you rush to fix everything? Will you make her regret opening up? Or will you simply stay present? Imagine the difference. Distant version. You ask, "How's work been?" She smiles. "Pretty good." And the conversation stays on the surface. Connecting version. You ask, "How's work been?" She pauses, then says, "It's been okay. Honestly, I've been feeling pretty burned out lately." Suddenly the conversation changes. Not because the topic changed, because the level of trust did. Without saying it directly, part of her is asking, "I'm showing you something real. Can I feel safe doing that?" If you meet that moment with genuine curiosity instead of trying to impress her, something shifts. The interaction stops feeling like two people trying to look attractive. It starts feeling like two people slowly discovering whether it's safe to be themselves. And that's often where the strongest connections begin. Number 6. She begins stepping into your world. This isn't something people consciously decide to do. It happens naturally when genuine interest starts growing. Most people stay focused on their own routines, their own interests, and their own perspective. But when a woman feels drawn toward you, she often starts becoming curious about the things that matter to you. She asks about your favorite hobby. She remembers the movie you recommended. She starts understanding your sense of humor. She brings up something you mentioned days earlier simply because she knows you'll enjoy talking about it. That isn't about pretending to like everything you like. It's about moving closer to your world. Attachment psychology explains this beautifully. When we feel emotionally connected to someone, we naturally begin building bridges into their inner life. We become curious about what excites them, what motivates them, what makes them laugh. Without realizing it, her nervous system is quietly saying, "I want to understand the things that make you you." That's why this feels so meaningful. It isn't imitation. It's emotional curiosity. Here's the difference. Neutral version. You tell her about your favorite band. She nods politely. "That's cool." Then the conversation moves on. Flirtatious version. A couple of days later she smiles and says, "So, I listened to that band you recommended. I have to admit, they're actually better than I expected." Then she laughs. "You're slightly less questionable than I originally thought." That lands differently. Not because she suddenly became a fan, because she intentionally stepped into something that mattered to you. And in doing so, she quietly communicated, "I've been thinking about you after our conversation ended." That's the kind of attention that makes someone feel genuinely seen, not observed, understood. Number 7. She gives the connection another chance. This might be the sign that gets overlooked more than any other. Many men focus entirely on the first interaction. They wonder whether the first conversation was enough, whether the first smile meant something, whether the first signal was clear enough. But genuine attraction often reveals itself through what happens next. A woman who's interested will frequently reopen a door that could have stayed closed. Maybe the conversation ended awkwardly. Maybe one of you got interrupted. Maybe the timing simply wasn't right. Instead of letting that moment disappear, she quietly creates another opportunity. Why? Because attraction often wants one more chance, without making itself too vulnerable. Rather than saying, "I'm interested in you," she simply creates another opening, another message, another conversation, another reason for the connection to continue. Inside, she may be thinking, "I gave this a chance once. I'm willing to try one more time. Here's what that looks like." Closed version. The conversation ends. Neither of you reaches out again. Life moves on. Flirtatious version. Later that evening she messages, "So, you never answered my extremely important question earlier." Or maybe she smiles the next time she sees you and says, "Are you always this mysterious? Or was yesterday just a special occasion?" Those little moments matter far more than they seem. Because when someone keeps reopening the conversation, they're quietly telling you they aren't ready for the connection to disappear. And often, that's one of the strongest indicators of genuine interest you'll ever notice. Bringing it all together. If you've been waiting for flirting to look obvious, you may have been looking in the wrong place. Real attraction is often subtle, because real attraction is usually careful. It doesn't always arrive through dramatic pursuit. Sometimes it shows up through curiosity, through presence, through repeated moments of turning back toward you. This isn't about becoming better at decoding hidden messages. It's about becoming more emotionally aware. The more you understand these patterns, the less you'll rely on grand gestures for reassurance. Instead, you'll begin noticing the quieter behaviors that actually build connection. You'll recognize consistent attention instead of chasing dramatic moments. You'll appreciate emotional nuance instead of demanding certainty. And perhaps most importantly, you'll understand that attraction and emotional safety are deeply connected. They don't compete with each other. They create each other. These aren't simply 7 ways to recognize flirting. They're reminders to become more present in every interaction, more patient, more grounded, more capable of noticing what another person is gently offering instead of waiting for them to shout it. Because the people who recognize real connection aren't usually the ones searching for the loudest signal. They're the ones paying attention to the quiet invitations everyone else overlooks. And that's where genuine flirting often begins. Not when someone makes their feelings impossible to miss, but when they quietly leave the door open and hope you'll be confident enough to walk through it.